Okay, there are two ways of entering counts into the count module. One is to go up under inventory and go into counts. And the other one is to do it from the inventory list. So if you are deciding to do a count for a group of products, maybe by vendor or by sales department or product code, what you can do is say sort by product code, and I'll choose all weights, and I'll just go all the way down, choose every one of them. And when I click on the count button, you'll see what happened was it said cannot count inventory kit. Please count kits components instead. So you can't count a kit because it's not a physically stocked item. It's made up of components. So you've got this one item in the middle here that's a kit. So we'll just control unselect it and then go ahead and do that again. Count. And here we have a list of all the items that we want to count. And on this list, we see the inventory code with a red dot, which means it's 0 counted at this point. You'll see that count quantity is at 0. The description, its warehouse location if we had it, whether it's a serialized item or not. We'll go over counting serialized items at the end. What our count quantity is at this time and what time it got counted. Expected quantity. Now this column is not normally shown except with a security setting because you don't normally want to show what the count is supposed to be to a user who's entering a count. It tends to make them second guess what should be put in there, and they really should just come right off the count sheet of what somebody counted. The stock count, now what this can be is because you can count in many units of measure. If you enter in a quantity 1 and it's a pair of items, it'll multiply that out to 2 here. Cost, the variance at this point, and the gain loss, and then any notes that you want to add to this line. And the notes, you can simply click right there and key in any notes about it. So if there's something particular during this count of this item that needs to be brought to the attention of the person reviewing the count, those notes should be entered right there. So the first thing that should be done is to print a count sheet. If they are being done manually, just hit the print and do a count sheet and preview. And what we'll get is the count sheet for all those items, and the user simply enters the count on here manually. Okay, I'll close that off. Now at this point, there's a few ways to actually enter the count. One is to use a scanner, and you would just hit the scan item button, click it. Okay, from here I can just scan in an item or type it in. Hit the enter button and you'll see that the item gets added. If I just close that for a second, and we'll see that our count quantity got added. Sort by count quantity, get to the top. So one item got added to the count there. I'll just go back to my scan, put in the same item again, and it's now changed to a 2. I can also do a multiplier on here. So if I got to find 12 of them, I go times and then scan in the item or type it in. And that multiplier is set up in company settings under inventory, depending on what you want to use for that multiplier. And then it increases now to 14. Okay, if I close that now, you'll see that those 3 separate lines got counted in there. And this dot is now orange color, which means that it doesn't match the quantity of expected of 86 at this point. So the other way of entering a count is by hitting the manual. So if you're entering these off a count sheet, and however you've got that count sheet printed, then you can sort these columns and just start keying in the amounts. So put in each of the amounts of the counts we had. And then the other thing you can do here is if your count is pretty well bang on with a few adjustments, you can quickly enter in all the correct counts and then just go ahead and adjust the ones that are incorrect. So if we throw in this one here has only got 89, maybe this one here only has 67, and I'll just put a few more in here. We'll go to here to 90, and we'll go here to 56, and another one at 66, and this last one at 78. Okay, and we'll click OK, and all those counts got entered. And if we do the expand all, you'll see that each of the counts of those items and the time that they got counted. And we'll see now we've got some variances on here. So we've still got this item at 0 count, and we've got the other ones here which are incorrect. Okay, so we'll put those back to collapse all, and those can be reviewed. Now what you can do here now is a variance, gain loss. You'll see you can sort by that, whether count variance or gain loss variance. And the ones of the high value items that are not correct, you want to start with a recount on those ones to start with, and then work your way down the list. And then you can decide at which point you want to do a recount on other things as well. Typically the high value losses are where people are counting, and gains as well, because typically a high gain can mean a mistake, and you may want to go back and at least review it anyway. Down at the bottom here shows our total variance in count and total variance in our loss here of 9,279.60. At this point, you can also print a report, and instead of the count sheet this time, we're going to print our count review. Print that, and what we get is a review of everything and each count individually, and the user's initials that counted it, which we see on the list as well here. You'll see when we expand one of those, it puts the user initials right there of who counted it, because multiple people can enter into this count sheet, into this count off their sheets, albeit they have to do it one at a time in each batch. If you do have multiple counters and you want to separate your counts by location or by product code or a vendor, you can have several batches going at the same time, and then each person can enter into their own batch. What this did when we created this count was to freeze the inventory. So this stock quantity that it says that we have in stock is not going to vary. So if we now start to receive and sell product, this 66 is going to stay here, and it's going to adjust the count by the variance between the 66 and the count. So if you now receive a whole bunch more, the adjustment is not going to match it up to what is now in stock. It's going to match it up to the variance that was created at the time of this count sheet. This way you don't have to stop working in your inventory while you are counting your product. This is referred to as freezing the inventory, and we did that by going to the inventory list. We could have also done it right from this button if we created the count from within the module. So I'm just going to push that aside for a moment, go into our count module again, and if I go plus, I got nothing in here at this point, but that same effect we did from the inventory list is by clicking this freeze inventory, I can select from this list. So if I'm going to do this now by vendor, and I'm going to count all of these items, I can go freeze selected, and it puts those items on in my list. And that's what's referred to as a freeze. Not that you have to stop working, but it just freezes the lock between the count and what was in the count file or the inventory on hand file at the time, and our count. So if we're looking at our variance here and we see this particular one is got a high variance, I can click the open inventory button by highlighting that item there, and I hit open, and it brings in the inventory item. So I can now have a look at this to see why I might be out on this. I can look at my receipts that I did, I can look at my sales, and I can also look at movement. This is the most valuable one to look at when you're working on a count. So you can see what has come in and out of the inventory through purchasing and through invoicing from here. So what you'd probably do is set a filter on the last from the last time you counted to now, and have a look what the ins and outs were. So if you're doing an analysis on this before posting it, then this is a very quick way to get at each item. So just highlight the item, click the open inventory, go to the movement tab, and you can see all that information right there. I talked earlier about the fact that you can count in multiple units of measure. So this top item here, I have that also available in pairs. So I found another carton off to the side, so I can go into hit my manual count button here, go down to my 45, dumbbell 45 here, choose my other unit of measure. So I put that in, and I put in the counted quantity of 2, and notice that the stock quantity went to 4 because they're pairs, so it increased by 4. And I click OK, and it adds those 4 to my count. So if I look at that 45 again, then I click on this, you see 2 counted, pairs, 4. So very easy to do multiple units of measure. So if there's boxes of them and you have those as part of your units of measure, you can do that as well. So if I want to add something manually to this count sheet that I'd already had created, I can do that by hitting the freeze inventory again. In this case, I'm going to search for an item that is serialized. So we're going to go with a PRES 323. I'll freeze select it, and you'll see that it got added to here. And if I go into it, you'll see that I've got a button here that says count serials. So it brings up all the serial numbers that I have there, and it shows the count quantity and the available quantity. So these are all my serial numbers that I've ever had. So in some cases, I may have sold the wrong serial numbers. So I come into here and I put in a count quantity of 1 on this one and 0 on this one, whereas you see that it was 0 and 1. I can bring the other serial number back into stock, and then the rest of them I can just keep the way they were, 0, 0, 1, and then 0, 0, and then I'll leave that at 0 as well, and that one at 0, and I'll bring this one back, and I'll put these ones in. So there's my count of my serial numbers. I click OK. And if I hit my expand button in front of there, you'll see that I have counted those serial numbers, and our grand total of 5 of them counted, but only 6 were expected. So I'm actually short of one of them. So that's how serialized items are included in this. Okay, once you're all finished, you've done your variance testing, you've done your recounts, you've gone and adjusted something, even up or down. You can do so by just clicking the manual count button and go -1 if you had to recount one of them. So if this one here, we had to readjust, and we go -1, and we click OK, it adds that count into it. And then when we're all done and we've reviewed everything, we can go ahead and post it. And by hitting the post, the transaction date. So if you counted this, the count was actually done at a month end, but you're just posting it now, you're going to want to date the GL transaction for the adjustment to the month end, especially if it's a year end. It's important. So in this case, we'll make this 10/31/2019 and click OK. Gives us our variance. So it tells us basically we've got a $10,000 variance, and we are going to be crediting our inventory by $9,000 in weights and $1,299 in equipment. Then we just click OK. It posts a journal entry. We get our final report that we give to the accountant for our adjustments, and there's our grand totals, and we click OK. Now, what happened? Well, that's that other one I had open earlier. I'll discard that. What happens now, it's kept that count. You can always go back and review it. So I go back into my inventory counts, and you'll see the one that I did today, the finish date. And I go into it, and there's my count. I can print my reports for it still. I can print variances for it still. I see everything. Okay, if I go into one of those items, so let's say you see some of these items here, and we expected 107, and we got this. We only got 78. If I open up inventory, just a quick way of getting to it, you'll see that by hitting the receipts button, we'll just get these wider, that down here, up here, you see the source of count, and it showed that we had a variance of 29, so minus 29 of those in our variance. And if I drill down to it, I actually drill down to the full count, so I can see what happened with the complete count as well. But that's all tracked right here, including the movement, of course. That 29 would also be in the movement report or movement list, and I can see all that information. Okay, what happened as well, if I get that part number and I go to my inventory list and I just put that part number in here so I can see it, you'll see that the last count quantity was 78, the variance was 29, and I'll move that over, and the last count date was 11/13. So all that information stored. You can now see exactly when it was counted. If I take this out of there and I go last count date, I should see everything that I counted today is all listed right there. So by using this list, you can do cycle counts throughout the year and just see what you've missed. At year end, you want to make sure that everything has at some point been counted. And if you have something on a date here from a past year, you want to just grab all those items and do a count on them. And that's it.